Hello, all. Welcome to Wiseversa, a podcast on business, finance, and economics with a hint of technology. Today is 11th of Feb 2026, and you're listening to me, that is Zim. Today's podcast is all about jobs, America's H1B maneuver, and a lot of other things. Ready with your headphones? Let's get started. The internet may make you question about the viability of a job or career prospects. You see, on the internet, everyone from rickshaw pullers to engineers, from Uber drivers to farmers, from students to teachers are all doomed because robots and AI could do everything, right? Thankfully, this week there has been some semblance and some real data coming in. India's periodic labor force survey was released yesterday and it found that unemployment was at 4.8% in the October through the December quarter. Agricultural jobs have risen, but salaried jobs have reduced from 25.4% to 24.9%. A decline was noticed in secondary sectors such as manufacturing and services. In Canada, the jobless rate, this was a report released about 7 days ago. Now, this report found that unemployment was down to 6.5% in January. It was a month when Canada had already lost some 25,000 jobs, and the labor force participation rate had declined to about 65% on a yearly basis. America's monthly data is expected to be released today, but in the month of December, America's Bureau of Labor Statistics found that unemployment had increased in 255 out of 387 metropolitan areas. Another finding observed that between the 4 months of September to December, the seasonally adjusted job compensation and wages had increased by just 0.7%. This is more or less the same number that one can see in the private industry also, which hovered between 0.6 to about 0.8%. I have linked the latest numbers in the podcast on YouTube and on Spotify. You should go there and also check out for yourself. Meanwhile, just to remind you that a good listener is also somebody who gives feedback. It could also be critical feedback. So go on and drop in your views and opinions in the comments section. So those numbers do say or indicate that unemployment is being reduced, but they cannot explain by what margin. Employment statistics across the world still have problems dealing with sample sizes, that is, the number of people ideally chosen for a particular study. Other problems such as discouraged workers and qualitative parameters also may be difficult for such studies to focus on. Moving on, the second part of today's podcast is all about America's probable reconsideration of H1B visas. Particularly, we are talking about EXILE bill. Now, EXILE stands for Ending Exploitative Imported Labor Exemptions Act. US Representative Greg Steube in his official blog said that more than 80% of recipients of H1B visas were either Indian or Chinese nationals, and America gave better preference and priority to younger workers. He cited examples of Microsoft's 16,000 employees being displaced by approval of 9,000 H1B visas in 2025 and Disney's layoffs, and how H1B prevents US physicians from residency programs as examples to illustrate that H1B visa was a disadvantage to American workers. Moving on the trade front, policy developments between India and America still continue. On Tuesday, reports emerged of how America had added pulses into the formal trade framework document with India. What is also widely discussed is possibility for India to let go of the digital services tax component as part of this framework. Digital taxes are components levied by the government on individual digital products. Quickly moving to the hot developments and discussions for the day. The Indian government has tightened rules for social media platforms. Companies like Meta, YouTube, and X will now have just 3 hours to remove unlawful content after notification, down from an earlier 36-hour window. Indian corporate and stock heavyweight Reliance has acquired Southern Health Foods for a cash consideration of rupees 156.42 crores with existing shareholders of Southern Health. On the strategic front, India is in talks with four more countries, that is Brazil, Canada, France, and Netherlands, on the policy around critical minerals. These resources are essential for electronics, renewable energy, and electric vehicles, and these talks aims to reduce dependence on imports and strengthen supply chains. From the world of finance, the RBI is introducing a risk-based premium model for deposit insurance starting April 1st. Instead of a flat rate, banks will now pay premiums based on their risk profile. Banking services may face disruption as a nationwide bank strike is scheduled for February 12th as bank unions protest over policy and staffing issues. Digital payment users, meanwhile, on Tuesday reported hiccups as UPI services in India saw temporary disruptions. In market regulation news, SEBI has stopped two newer stock exchanges from launching equity derivatives. The regulator wants them to first build liquidity in cash equity trading before expanding into complex products. India's next major agreement, that is the free trade agreement, could be with Chile. After deals with Malaysia, Europe, and the US, negotiations with Chile are gaining traction. The BBC World Service is learnt as facing a serious funding crunch. The broadcaster's chief was recently quoted as saying and as warning that funds could run out in just 7 weeks. In the United States, loan delinquencies have surged to their highest levels in nearly a decade. More borrowers are falling behind on repayments, and this is a sign that high interest rates and persistent inflation are probably putting some kind of pressure on household finances. Among major financial stories for the day, gold prices remained steady in the international markets at upwards of $5,000 per troy ounce, and in India, gold was quoting 15,611 rupees per gram, according to trade associations. Silver, at the time of publishing this podcast, had picked up. On the MCX, silver was trading at 4.80% upwards. Among equity markets, an absence of cues resulted in a day of marginal declines. The Sensex settled 40.28 points lower. Information technology stocks were in the red, while auto and healthcare stocks traded positive. And that would be a wrap for today. Thank you for listening and hope you are making Wiseversa Daily a part of your day. Do follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Spotify will be the audio-only experience, but some of our in-depth features will be uploaded and made available only on YouTube going soon. We will meet in the next podcast episode tomorrow. Thank you and bye-bye.